You've been told a story about intensity. It goes like this. When someone pursues you relentlessly, showers you with attention, tells you early that you're different from everyone they've ever met, moves fast because they can't imagine slowing down. That's passion. That's chemistry. That's what real connection feels like when it finally arrives. That story is dangerous. Not because intensity is always wrong, not because early excitement is always a red flag, but because there is a specific pattern of behavior that mimics the feeling of being deeply chosen, that produces every emotional response that genuine love produces, while being structurally, functionally, and psychologically something else entirely. That pattern has a name: love bombing. And the reason it's so difficult to identify from inside it is not because the people experiencing it are naive or weak or lacking in self-awareness. It's because love bombing is designed, consciously or not, to bypass the exact cognitive processes that would otherwise allow you to evaluate it accurately. By the time you have enough information to see it clearly, you're already inside it. This is what the 4 signs actually look like, why each of them works, and what distinguishes them from the real thing. Sign 1. The intensity has no relationship to the actual time you've spent together. Genuine connection builds. It deepens through accumulated shared experience, through the progressive lowering of defenses that happens as 2 people demonstrate, over time, through repeated behavior, that they are safe to be known by. That process takes time. Not because people are slow, but because trust is built from evidence, and evidence requires events, and events require time to occur. Love bombing collapses that timeline, not by accident, not because the feeling is so strong that normal progression feels insufficient, because the point of love bombing, whether the person doing it is conscious of this or not, is to create a bond before you have enough information to decide whether you want one. The declarations arrive before you know each other. I've never felt this way about anyone. I think you might be the person I've been waiting for. I know this is fast, but I've never been more certain of anything. These statements land with enormous force because they trigger something real in you, the human longing to be fully seen and chosen. But they arrive in a context where the person saying them has not yet had sufficient opportunity to actually see you. What they are responding to is not you. It is the idea of you, a projection of everything they want temporarily mapped onto your actual person. And the distinction matters enormously because the bond that forms in response to that projection is not a bond with you. It is a bond with something you will eventually fail to be. The distinguishing question: does the depth of what they're expressing match the amount of time and shared experience you've actually accumulated, or does it feel like it's running ahead of the evidence? Sign 2. The attention feels like it has a function beyond connection. There is a texture to genuine attention that is difficult to articulate but not difficult to feel. It feels curious, it feels patient, it feels like someone is actually trying to understand you, not to acquire you. The attention in love bombing has a different texture. It is abundant, often overwhelming, but it has a direction to it. It is moving toward something. Toward your commitment, toward your vulnerability, toward your declaration that you feel the same way, toward the moment when you are sufficiently bonded that the dynamic can shift. The messages arrive constantly, not because the person can't stop thinking about you in the way that feels free and effortless, but because constant contact is how the bond is being maintained and deepened at an accelerated rate. The compliments are relentless, not because appreciation is spilling over, but because compliments produce a specific emotional response that deepens attachment. The mirroring is precise. They seem to share your values, your tastes, your sense of humor, your frustrations, your dreams, not because you happen to find someone remarkably similar to you, but because people engaged in this pattern are extremely attentive to what you respond positively to, and they reflect it back. None of this feels like performance from the inside. It rarely feels like performance to the person doing it, but the pattern has a momentum to it, a direction that genuine attention doesn't have. Genuine attention is interested in wherever the conversation goes. This attention is moving somewhere specific. The distinguishing question: does their attention feel like it wants to know you, or does it feel like it wants to secure you? Sign 3. Your needs and pace are consistently secondary to the momentum of the relationship. This is the sign that most clearly separates love bombing from genuine intensity, and it is the one that gets overlooked most consistently. Because in the early stages of something real, there is also urgency. There is also a desire to spend time together, to move forward, to let the other person in. The difference is this. In something real, when you express hesitation, when you say you need to slow down, when you express uncertainty, when you ask for space to think, the other person accepts it. Not without disappointment, necessarily, but without destabilization. In love bombing, your hesitation is not accepted as information about your needs. It is treated as a problem to be solved. Have I done something wrong? I thought you felt the same way. I don't understand. I've never been this open with anyone. The response to your request for space is more contact, more intensity, more declaration. The response to your expressed uncertainty is hurt that requires your reassurance. The response to your need to slow down is an acceleration of the pressure, not usually through aggression, but through the implicit message that your hesitation is damaging something precious, and that the responsible thing to do is to set it aside. This is the clearest functional distinction between love and love bombing. Love expands to include your pace. Love bombing requires you to match its pace or bear responsibility for the consequences of not doing so. The distinguishing question: when you've expressed hesitation or asked for space, what happened? Did they adjust? Or did the pressure, overt or implicit, increase? Sign 4. The idealization is total, and you sense it isn't sustainable. People in love see the best in each other. That is not a pathology. That is part of what love is. But there is a difference between seeing someone's best and refusing to see anything else. In love bombing, the idealization is complete. You are not a person to them yet. You are a category, the one, the exception, the person who finally understands, and you are being held inside that category with an intensity that has nothing to do with your actual, specific, sometimes contradictory, occasionally disappointing self. And somewhere underneath the warmth and the flattery and the overwhelming attention, you can feel it. The weight of being someone's answer. The particular anxiety of being placed on a pedestal, not because the height is uncomfortable, but because you know, with some quiet part of you, that pedestals require you to never step down. You sense that this person doesn't actually know you yet. You sense that the version of you they are responding to is curated, is early, is the version that hasn't yet made the mistakes or expressed the needs or revealed the contradictions that constitute your actual self. And you sense, sometimes consciously, sometimes only as a vague background unease, that the intensity of their response to the curated version means something about what will happen when the real version eventually appears. That sense is important. It is your evaluating mind doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The distinguishing question: do they seem to be responding to you, your specific, complicated, actual self, or to something they've decided you are? What love bombing is actually for. It is worth being precise about the function of love bombing, because the common framing that it is a calculated manipulation technique deployed by predatory people is both partially true and substantially incomplete. In some cases, it is deliberate. In some cases, the person engaging in this pattern has a full understanding of what they're doing and why. But in many cases, probably most cases, love bombing is not a strategy. It is a symptom. Specifically, it is the symptom of someone who has an anxious or disorganized attachment style, for whom the early stages of a relationship produce intolerable levels of uncertainty, and who manages that uncertainty by accelerating the bond to the point where it feels secure, regardless of whether the conditions for a genuine secure attachment have been met. The intensity is real, the feelings are real, the need is real. What isn't real is the object of those feelings, because the object hasn't been allowed to exist yet as a full, actual, specific person. Understanding this doesn't change what you should do with the information, but it changes how you think about the person doing it. And whether the word predator is accurate, or whether a person who has not yet learned to tolerate the uncertainty of genuine attachment is closer to the truth. What distinguishes love from love bombing? The distinction is not intensity. Genuine love can be intense. The distinction is not speed. Genuine connection can move fast. The distinction is not declarations. Genuine feeling produces early declaration sometimes. The distinction is what happens when the real you shows up. What happens when you express a need they can't immediately meet? What happens when you have a bad day that has nothing to do with them? What happens when you disagree, when you disappoint, when you fail to reflect back the image they've been responding to? Love adjusts. It stays curious, it stays present, it accommodates the complicated actual person it has found itself attached to. Love bombing destabilizes, because love bombing was never a response to you. It was a response to the need, their need, for a specific kind of certainty that genuine relationship cannot provide on the timeline they require. So here's the question worth sitting with. If something in this video felt familiar, if the description of a particular pattern mapped onto something you've experienced, are experiencing, or are currently in the middle of, the question worth sitting with is not, is this person bad? It's, am I being responded to, or am I being needed? Because being needed can feel, for a while, indistinguishable from being loved. The difference only becomes clear over time, usually at the exact moment when you most need the distinction to be true, and discover quietly that it isn't.